And in today's episode, among other things, you'll see it started, okay, my friends? A company from the United States is sending humanoid robots to the front lines on the battlefield in Ukraine. We'll also see that these machines can now operate on their own without being controlled by humans. And besides autonomous robots, we'll also see autonomous trucks working in the same way in the mines of China. Okay, and I can't help but tell you that Switzerland is planning to launch the first quantum orbital cloud with internet satellites for governments. And that ChatGPT was used to create a cancer vaccine for a female dog. And the one who did this wasn't a scientist, it was her owner. Let's understand all of this. Hello, impressed viewers. I'm Carlos Alves, and you're watching Incredible Reality. First, I have news that I think will really benefit you. Do you remember Aria, the artificial intelligence I've been promoting on the channel for a while? Well, now the folks at Genesis have released 15 days of free trials, okay? No need to use a credit card or any other payment method. To register, it's really simple. Just access the link in the description or in the pinned comment. QR code, which, on your screen, takes you straight to the registration. And you can use it for half a month. Did you hear that? Half a month in full. Our artificial intelligence knows why these guys release this 15-day free access that no one else offers, because they trust the product they have. They know that once you try it, you'll want to use it indefinitely. And I want to remind you that with Aria, you have access to the best artificial intelligences on the market: Generative Pre-trained Transformer Jimny, GIPSEC, and many others. Go check the pinned comment and see all the AIs that are available for you, and it's for 15 days completely free, only for those who use my coupon, okay? My link is here in the description. This is an achievement of incredible reality. Help us out. I'm always helping you. If you help me, I'll help you. Yes, it's a fact that war has always been one of the biggest drivers of technological evolution. There's no denying that, but now it might be about to take a leap that's completely changing the battlefield. For the first time in history, humanoid robots are starting to be tested directly on the front lines of the war between Ukraine and Russia. These are real machines being sent on reconnaissance missions in an active combat environment. The Phantom Mark 1 models, the Phantom, which are developed by the American Startup Foundation, were delivered to Ukraine in February with the clear goal of testing how these robots behave in real war situations. Ukraine, in fact, has already become a true testing ground for emerging military technologies. Just in January, thousands of operations with robots were recorded, mainly in logistical tasks such as delivering ammunition, weapons, and supplies on the front line. But the Phantom Mark 1 represents a new level. But before I show you what this new level is, I ask you to leave your like, enjoy, and share this video, because you can see, every time I post a technology related to war, YouTube doesn't really like it. It's family friendly, I get it, but it's something important that I need to bring to you. So I really need you to leave your like on this video, share it with as many people as you can, and leave a comment. This really helps the video's engagement. Let's keep going, because now I'll show you why this is on another level. Because it's not just another robot, my friend. It was designed to replace the human soldier itself. That's a good thing. According to the company, the goal is that in the future, these robots will be able to operate any type of weapon used by humans. And that future might not be so far away, okay? The justification behind this is pretty straightforward: to reduce the risk to human soldiers in dangerous missions. But this idea raises an inevitable question. If machines start to occupy the battlefield, who will really be making the decisions? And the progress isn't happening on just one side, okay? Both Ukraine and Russia are already using robots in military operations, even though, for the most part, they aren't humanoid robots. In some reported cases, these systems have already been seen operating weapons and even forcing surrenders in combat. In other words, what once seemed distant is already happening, my friends. And maybe the most unsettling point is realizing that this technology isn't being developed for some hypothetical future. It's already being tested now in real time, and in a scenario where mistakes aren't just failures but have real consequences. Now tell me, if war starts being fought by machines, does that make conflicts safer or just easier to happen? And while you open the comments section to help me with your opinion, I'll bring you this next story right here. A new technological breakthrough in the field of humanoids. We've just seen what everyone already knew would happen with humanoid robots, right? But they need to know where they are, where to go, and what to avoid along the way. And that's exactly the challenge that an American company is trying to solve. During NVIDIA GPU Technology Conference, which took place in California, RealSense presented a new approach to make humanoid robots much more reliable in real-world environments. The demonstration was done with Chinese company Linex Dynamics, showing a system capable of allowing robots to see, map, and move with great precision in 3 dimensions. And all of this happens through a combination of advanced 3D vision with something called Visual Slam. This is a system that allows the robot to locate itself and map the environment at the same time. In practice, it's like giving the robot a kind of quote-unquote visual cortex, an ability to interpret the space around it in real time. And that makes all the difference. Because unlike robots with wheels, which operate on flat and predictable surfaces, humanoids need to deal with a much more complex world. Stairs, inclines, obstacles, people moving around. All of that requires constant decisions with a very high level of precision, and traditional methods simply can't handle that. Systems like sensors based on 2D mapping can't provide the depth and spatial understanding that are needed. That's why many robots still depend on human control or a fully controlled environment. But this new approach tries to change that situation. With depth sensors and much more advanced navigation systems, robots can identify changes in the terrain, avoid moving obstacles, and adjust their own steps. In real time, they can climb stairs, dodge people, and adapt to dynamic environments much more safely. And the most interesting thing is how they reach this level. Before entering the real world, they train in a virtual world. Using NVIDIA's ZAC the robots go through extremely realistic simulations where they learn to balance, walk, and make decisions. What happens is that basically they are practicing thousands of times in a safe environment before taking their first step into our physical world. This process drastically reduces errors and accelerates development. And maybe that's exactly what's allowing robots to stop being just demonstrations and start occupying real spaces in our physical world. But seeing our world is only half the challenge. Because after identifying an object, an obstacle, or even a person, the robot needs to interact with what it's seeing. And it's precisely at this point that most machines are still failing, but that's changing. Okay, let's see how that's happening. Tesla introduced a new robotic hand called DG5FS, designed to take robot dexterity to a new level. It has 5 fingers and 20 degrees of freedom, meaning multiple independent movements like a real human hand, and this allows for much more natural articulation. And even with all this complexity, it maintains a size and weight that is extremely compact. Just 21 centimeters and about 880 grams. And that's enough for it to be integrated into humanoid robots without compromising balance or performance. But what really stands out is the behavior of this hand. The joints use a reverse drive system which allows them to absorb impacts and adapt to the environment. In practice, this means that the robot can interact with objects much more safely without breaking what it's holding. But this evolution isn't just in the mechanics, it's in the strategy. Instead of focusing only on numbers and specifications, Tesla prioritized something essential: integration. In other words, making this hand actually work on any robot, on robots that already exist. This represents a pretty significant change. The company also offers a much simpler version, with 15 degrees of freedom, designed for applications that need less complexity and more efficiency. But the race doesn't stop there. Other giants are also making advances in this same territory. Samsung, for example, is developing tendon-based systems that mimic the human muscular structure, moving the motors to the forearm. This can bring more natural and precise movements. And perhaps the most critical point of all, touch. Sensors capable of detecting pressure, texture, and even the moment when the object starts to slip, allowing the robot to adjust its strength and grip in real time, just like we do without even noticing. And if robots can already be equipped with hands like those, which are quite advanced, can they mine without being controlled by humans? Let's see the answer. Automation is already changing our world. You can notice that anywhere you go. But in some sectors, it's advancing much faster than we imagine. And one of the best examples of this is happening in the mines. BYD, one of the largest electric vehicle companies in the world, has just invested millions of dollars in a Chinese startup to accelerate a project that could completely transform mining. Giant trucks, fully electric and fully autonomous. The company Boonray is developing vehicles capable of operating at level 4 autonomy, meaning they don't require human intervention. Most of the time, these trucks use a combination of onboard sensors and physical infrastructure, such as reference points spread throughout the mine. With this, they are able to navigate very accurately in complex environments. And it's not just about driving by themselves, okay? One of the big differences is in the battery swapping. Instead of stopping for long periods to recharge, the trucks perform quick swaps. allowing for almost continuous operations. In practice, this means mines operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is no longer just theory, okay? The technology is already being used in dozens of projects in China, operating in different types of terrain and also in extreme conditions. In one of these cases, a fleet of autonomous trucks managed to perform 200 battery swaps in a single day. That's a number that shows the level of productivity this model can achieve. This progress isn't happening in isolation. The heavy electric truck market is already growing rapidly, with thousands of units sold and an increasing presence in industrial operations. And that's exactly what caught BYD's attention. The company sees this technology as a way to unite two movements happening at the same time: automation and clean energy, a combination that could completely redefine traditional sectors like mining. Because at the end of the day, my friends, we're not just talking about humanoid robots or futuristic machines. We're talking about systems that are already being implemented on a large scale and changing the way our world works. But while automation is transforming what's happening here on Earth, there's an even bigger question being asked out there. What if life and technology, of course, weren't limited to our planet? Because the next step isn't just automating work. It's understanding whether life itself can survive out there. A recent experiment provided an answer that could change everything. There you go. After a 14-day mission at the door of the Chinese space station Tiangong, a female rat returned to Earth, got pregnant, and gave birth to 9 healthy pups. This may seem simple at first glance, as I'm telling you here, but in practice, it's one of the most important tests ever conducted for the future of life in space. The 4 rats sent on the Shenzhou 21 mission were used to study how mammals react to the extreme conditions of microgravity and radiation. During this period, they faced challenges that, just like humans, were unexpected. The mission schedule had to be changed because of space debris, which ended up leaving the animals isolated with limited resources. And that's when a race against time began. Ground teams and taikonauts had to improvise solutions to keep the rats alive. They used the station's own systems, thus managing to provide liquids to the habitat. As for feeding, they had to resort to a rather unusual alternative: soy milk, before using it. However, tests were quickly conducted with rats here on Earth to ensure it would be suitable. Only then did they use it in space as well. Meanwhile, an artificial intelligence system monitored every behavior of the animals in real time, from feeding to resting patterns. Even with all these challenges, the rats survived, and more than that, they reproduced. After returning to Earth, one of the females gave birth to a healthy litter, with pups showing strong vitality. This indicates something extremely important. Short-duration space missions, at least in this case, did not compromise the ability under a huge door. Because if life is able to continue, then human presence outside of Earth stops being just a visit and starts to become something permanent. We can put it that way. Now, the researchers are going even further. What they want is to understand if these offspring, descendants of animals that have been to space, will have any changes throughout their lives. And, most importantly, if they will be able to reproduce normally. And if life can begin to take its first steps outside of Earth, our infrastructure also needs to keep up with this movement, because it's not enough to just take living organisms into space. We also need to bring communication, safety, and control. And a Swiss company plans to launch exactly that. The internet we use today might be living on borrowed time. Yeah, sort of, not because of a lack of speed, but because of a lack of security. With the advancement of quantum computing, current encryption systems, the ones that protect banks, governments, and personal data, could simply stop working. And it's precisely to solve this problem that a company is looking up to space. SciAOSQ announced a project that's quite ambitious: to create the world's first commercial orbital quantum cloud. This would be an infrastructure based on satellites, capable of providing virtually unbreakable communication. The idea is to build a constellation of 100 satellites by 2023. And this would be in partnership with UIC-7. But it's not just about putting servers in space. Okay, we're talking about a new layer of security, an internet based on quantum principles. They would use technologies like quantum key distribution, quantum random number generation, and post-quantum identification systems. In practice, this means creating a communication system where any attempt at interception would be detected instantly. Because in the quantum world, observing data already alters the data itself. In other words, spying leaves traces, and that completely changes the rules of the game. Today, data centers consume enormous amounts of energy and even water for cooling. That's why some ideas already suggest taking the structures to space, where they could be powered by the sun and cooled naturally. Sesk is taking this concept a little further, not only taking data to space, but also creating a new global security infrastructure. Now the goal is to turn all of this into a commercial service, aimed at banks, governments, defense, and large companies. But perhaps the most impressive thing about all this is that while we're building quantum networks in space and developing technologies capable of protecting entire systems, the same intelligence is also being used for something much closer and much more personal. Something that really matters. Because in the end, technology isn't just about machines, data, or infrastructure, it's about life. Sometimes the greatest innovations don't start in laboratories. They start with a loss. When a tech entrepreneur from Australia saw his dog being diagnosed with an aggressive cancer, he decided to do something that few would imagine. Instead of accepting the limits of traditional treatments, he decided to create his own solution from scratch, using artificial intelligence, genetic analysis, and even an OpenAI chatbot. With this in hand, he began developing an experimental and personalized cancer vaccine. His dog Rose had been rescued years earlier and became part of his family. But even with chemotherapy and surgery, the tumors kept progressing. That's when he decided to explore another path. After the animal's DNA was fully sequenced, he compared the healthy cells with the cancerous ones. This made it possible to identify exactly which mutations were causing the disease. Basically, it was as if he was analyzing two versions of the same system, one intact and the other with flaws. With all this complete data, he used algorithms to search for effective ways to fight cancer. And that's when the boldest idea came up: a personalized mRNA vaccine. This technology, recently prominent in other medical fields, is now being used in a personalized way. With the support of researchers and specialists, the vaccine was developed specifically for Rose's case, and the result drew a lot of attention. The tumor, which was the size of a tennis ball, was reduced by half just days after the application. This is something that not only brought hope for the treatment of this animal, but also surprised oncology specialists. Because what happened there goes far beyond an isolated case. It shows the potential of a new approach, a personalized medicine based on the genetic code of each individual. This type of technology would be able to act with precision, instead of trying to treat everyone the same way. And maybe that's the most important point. The technology used in this process is not inaccessible, it already exists. Genetic sequencing, artificial intelligence, and mRNA, all of this is already part of reality. What changes now is the way these pieces are being connected. And this can completely transform the future of disease treatment. Because in the end, my friends, this story isn't just about a dog. It's about how far someone is willing to go when technology meets a real purpose. Now, tell me, when artificial intelligence starts helping to create personalized treatments, are we facing a new era of medicine? Or are we just at the beginning of something even bigger? Leave your answer in the comments. Okay, if you enjoyed this episode, check your subscription, and thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate your support. Click on one of the two suggestions and I'll see you in the next one. Just click, all right? Thanks, bye-bye, see you soon.